Good evening, everyone. Welcome to KOTR. Tonight we'll be doing knowledge and principles. I felt the need to continue on the importance of building a foundation. Now, we covered the basics of it on the last episode, but I wanted to further get into it, talk about more of it from the aspects of our magical names, spiritual names, to the things that we allow in to have influence on us. The fact, as I stated in the last video, this is a never-ending process. We're constantly changing as we grow in our spiritual walks of life. The more things we learn, the more things that we see that maybe at one point in time in our spiritual walks we weren't ready to fully understand something. And now we reach that stage where we understand it more and we realized that what we once thought and believed was not the full of it, and we removed the negative and illusions from that aspect and replace it with the new. But before we get started, I actually would like to share screens for a second. And introduce you guys to a new website. Hopefully I don't butcher the name. As many of you know that's followed KOTR over the years, whether it be through the magazine or the website, or some of you that may be new just to the podcast, we've always been about our fellow brothers and sister sites. We've always interacted with them and shared their stuff, as well as most of you guys know that KOTR doesn't really have much harm when it comes to Wicca because, well, most of us don't follow that particular path, but we've always wanted to add it to KOTR. Cypriana School of Wicca is just that. She's an awesome lady. She's been slowly working on putting this together for all of you. And it's an awesome website. It's still, she's still setting it up. New people are joining. So it's going to be a fun new platform, especially for me. I mean, I have very limited knowledge when it comes to Wicca. Most of mine's ritualistic, occult-based, OTO going on. Yes, I have Druidism and various meditation schools and Eastern philosophies. But when it comes to the Wicca side of things, very little knowledge. And I know I've had a lot of people ask for more Wicca related stuff. So I am introducing you to Cypriana's School of Wicca. Now, when you first join, she actually offers a tarot reading, and she'll also help you find your pagan name, which is kind of interesting, something I'm going to cover in this video. I will put the link in the chat since the chat will be up, and it's starting, like I said, new groups are starting to be created, new content's being added. There's tons of content in these groups. I was browsing through them earlier, so it's definitely a place that you guys might want to check out, especially those that want to learn more about the Wiccan past and teachings. I'm happy to support this website just as I am all the other ones I've been on and still am on, such as Shadowheart and Soul of the Black Rose, In the Dark, spiritual forum. Can't remember. The Enchanted Forest. I don't get on these sites as much as I used to, mainly because I'm doing podcasts now more. As you guys know, I haven't really been posting on KOTR much due to my other channel. But, I've got some cool and upcoming things coming, so I definitely am looking forward to that. But do stop by and check her site out. I think you guys will find it very interesting. And maybe here in the next coming weeks, as she gets everything situated there, I will maybe work out a time that she can come on here and fully break down her site and talk about a few things Wicca based. So we'll see as time permits on that one. We can get to work out our schedules. Also, want to plug one more thing. This week, most of you probably don't know, but I recently got the privilege of co-hosting on Pirate Radio podcast. This week we'll have let me find it here. So I don't screw this up. Esoteric America will be joining us on Pirate Radio podcast this Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Dedicated to the pursuit of Gnostic consciousness and the esoteric awareness that we all spend our lives knowing or not seeking. I am thoroughly looking forward to that podcast, listening to what they have to say, and I will welcome all of you guys to join us. Pirate Radio Podcast is much like what we do on Practice and did on KOTR, always opening the door for new people, various genres and stuff. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise to be granted the ability to co-host on that site and podcast. So on to tonight's show, since I've rambled on enough. The importance of building a foundation. As we discussed last time, and as I stated in the beginning of this video, there's so many things that we interact with. We're constantly changing, growing, evolving as we walk down these spiritual paths. I think one of the first important things is our spiritual name or magical name. How we go about choosing it, and also understanding that it may change. You may end up having many spiritual names. It's something it took me a while to understand and learn myself. I still pretty much will keep this one that was given to me. But I have a few others. As I've evolved and grown, interacted in other circles and other paths, sometimes you see the need to pick up a new spiritual name. What is a spiritual name? Well, it's much like when we're dealing with the gods and goddesses and entities, the personas and aspects. Our spiritual name is just another aspect and persona. It personifies the knowledge and wisdom that we are working with. It is also much like any of the other tools we use. When I say tools, I'll reiterate for those that don't understand. Your wand, athame, robes, altar, they're all training wheels. They all are meant to teach you and train you the properties and aspects and energies that are already a part of you. They unlock the door in your mind to reach the right state of gnosis, to channel those aspects. So in a sense, our magical name is just another tool. When we take on that persona, or when we take on that godhead or goddess, we become that persona. And it's much like that when we start realizing the truths, that there's truths in all these paths. They were never meant to be divided as they are and scattered. And as you start building on your foundation, your spiritual name becomes a part of that foundation. And as you change from aspect to aspect, sometimes you may want to change the name until you reach that point where you no longer need the training wheels, so to speak. You realize it's all a part of you. Because each and all these paths that we learn and get taught, they become a part of you. So they become a part of that aspect. But say we would just want to focus on, let's say I want to focus on Anakian this week. So I would want something that would separate everything else, so I could just focus and reach the state of gnosis and attune myself to just the Anakian tablets and the angelic language and the banners, the wings, and all the stuff that comes in with the Anakian. So I may, until I've learned enough to unlock, just so everything flows naturally and it's already a part of me, and I can actually, when I decide I'm working on Anakian, it's just an instant mental shift. I no longer have to take on that persona or the aspect of that name. It just becomes instantaneous, and everything changes to that aspect and persona. But till you reach that point, that is what another reason why you take on a spiritual name. For many, I'm known in this community pretty much well by Smiley. But as I've grown, I've taken on more of my nickname, and it's because I'm now even known by the spirits more and more by Drew other than Smiley. So I've come full circle. I've come to realize that Smiley is just another aspect and persona, the completion of which, and it's not a completion, because as I stated, we're always growing and learning, and we're always making changes and removing things that we might have had wrong, or that we weren't ready to understand and accept at the time. So these tools are important, especially at the beginning stages of building our foundation. Choosing your name is, some people will keep them for the rest of their entire journey. Others will pick up multiple ones. Then others will realize it's just a title, it's just an aspect and persona. It separates me from who I really am. So therefore we create something else. Hence we become I am that I am. All things encompass me, all things are a part of me, and all things flow through me. So therefore I have become one with it all. Then we also start realizing, because especially in the more my teachings, where, we go through grades, neophyte, zealater, and I'm sure I'm going to forget because it's been so long since I've dealt with any of the grades, but neophyte, zealater, no, there's one more, I can't think of the name of it. Then it goes Adeptus Minor, Adeptus Major, Magus, and Impetor. I missed one, but You get the point. You know, when we're in that grade, we're learning those aspects, those properties, those things that encompass that area of learning, that sphere of knowledge and wisdom. It's also, as for those that've watched the Walking of the Tree series, it's also each of those has a key and a link to part of the tree of life as we traverse it and walk it. You know, granted, the way I taught it and brought it to you guys, I showed you the proper way to do it. Most people aren't taught that way. You know, it wasn't my way, wasn't really the beginner's way, but yet it should be, because it strips that definition distinction between that there's two trees, as above so below, that they're separate, when in fact they are one tree, and all things flow evenly through the tree. When we start making a separation or a distinction one over the other, we're actually causing an imbalance. We're restricting the flow so it doesn't flow natural. That's why I taught it the way I did. You're working out of both. It is one tree. So therefore, when you walk the tree, you're walking both aspects of it. It's flowing through the whole tree. And that's something that I feel is very important to understand, especially when we're building our foundations, because if we break that little habit right then and there, then, you know, we can put all the labels and the colors aside. Then it becomes everything flows naturally. There's no such thing as good or bad or evil. It is your intention, your intent. Your intent makes it what it is. You know, no such thing as ascension, descension. When you start choosing those things, you start putting emphasis over one over the other and causing some really bad chaos. But they choose to teach it that way to keep people divided. And as by now, you know, I'm not on this division crap. Because the simple fact is, there's truth in all of our past. The quicker you can learn that, the easier it's going to be. The smoother the process of building your temple, your foundation. The quicker you can get rid of all that garbage, the better you'll be. The easier it is to to move on. The easier it is when you encounter something that you're now ready to learn. It's easier to remove the things that weren't quite right. You see it instantly. You know it. It's a smoother transition. There's the word I was looking for. And that is important. The smoother the transition is, the smoother that you become more aware to these things, the easier it is. Oh, I had that wrong. Yeah, we need to remove that. And by doing so, you're keeping that flow of energy, that frequency, that vibration running smoothly as it's supposed to naturally. You're not hindering it. It's not easy to learn. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes a little bit of acceptance that, hey, I had something wrong. And it wasn't because it was wrong at the time. I just wasn't ready to realize the truths in it and accept that it needed to be changed at that time. See, our mind is a key process of building our foundations and building our temple. What we allow into our mind also affects the temple and our foundations, much like who I talked about, who we let into our lives, let into our circles. You know, we live in this day and age where everything's, you got to have all these followers and friends. It's a numbers game. It's a race to who has the most, a popularity contest. All you're doing is feeding the ego there, guys. You're quickly working your way to megalomania, to a god complex. Nip it in the bud early on, because we'll all go through it. But the quicker you learn to control the ego, control what's coming in and what you're allowing into your temple, to your foundation, the better you'll be, the better off you'll be. Not saying it's not okay, but learn how to distinguish labels. Learn how to interact with spirits and teach them your definition of the labels that you choose to use. Because in a sense, your spiritual name is just another label. It's another aspect, a persona. And all the spirits that you interact with know you by this. They know when you're taking on that and using that name, that you are in command, that you are basically in your Tifereth, sitting on your seat or throne. And it is so important to understand these things early on. And it's some of the things I seen and realized that I wasn't taught early on. But then again, I wasn't taught a lot of the simple things because simplicity just killed me. My teacher learned quick enough to just hand me complexity, and I'll quickly figure that out and occasionally slide in a little simplicity in there, and maybe I'll get lucky with the complexity and and figure out the simplicity as I'm figuring out the complex stuff. Mind works a little bit differently than most. It's just like meditation. Meditation's another important aspect when building our foundations. There's many schools and philosophies of meditation. The fact is, for those of us more ritual practitioners, even when we're researching and doing our rituals, we're actually in a meditative state. When we're doing all that work, we're actually have created the ritual and done the ritual before we ever enter the circle, because we enter that state of gnosis, that state of trance and meditation. And then what the meditation helps you do, it helps you to quiet your thought. It helps you focus on your inner spiritual aspect, your foundations, your temple. And it allows you to start seeing the little cracks, the things that need to be changed. It helps you reach that once more, that smooth transition that you want. Don't make it difficult. It doesn't have to be. The hardest part is the accepting and the willing to make the change. Because sometimes you'll be feeling like, I don't know. It feels right, but you know what I mean. We're always, it's all about taking that leap of faith, doing, and trusting in yourself. Trusting and learning to listen to yourself. That's what meditation actually helps you do. It helps you listen to that inner voice, listen to yourself and the things around you. It helps you keep everything flowing smoothly and naturally, the way it's supposed to be. Because like I said, we don't want no cracks or nicks in our foundation. Because when it comes to the spiritual warfare aspect, that's the first thing we see. We see your cracks, we see your weaknesses, and that's the easiest way in, is to manipulate and instantly attack that crack, whether it be through doubt. But here's the other thing. With this modern day and age we live in, with all this technology, and if I haven't learned my lesson from my other podcast, I should know better and keep my Hangout window up just in case I have issues. Yeah, guys, of course, Sons and Daughters Liberty. It's things I talk about over there has a tendency to make Hangouts go boogie from time to time. But here's the other importance, guys. We're living in a day and age where somebody's taken all of our tools and just handed it to everybody out there without instruction manuals, without teaching. So we have people playing with magic, playing with sigils every day, and they're not even aware of it. Something I've come to realize is that we create our defenses. We emblaze our auras and energy to protect us against that very same thing. So sometimes we don't even catch it, or we subconsciously catch it and just throw up our little defenses and scroll on by. But until you reach that state, till you've done all that, because we're not talking about people that's as far along as me. We're talking about new people. People are just now starting to build their foundations, or people that have neglected their foundations and starting to rebuild them, removing those things. We are bombarded with sigils on a constant basis. We are bombarded with frequencies and energies on a constant basis. And we have to start realizing and adapting and adding and making the proper changes to our foundations to combat just that. But also at the same time being aware enough to catch these things so we can point them out, teach others so they're not affected by it, so they're not manipulated and influenced by these things. Because we know the dangers of the uncontrolled thought. Many people out there have given long lectures on this very subject of the uncontrolled thought, how dangerous it is when it becomes manifested. When we're living in a day and age where we're interacting with different energies and vibrations and frequencies on a daily basis. We're being bombarded with them. So now it's even more important that we learn to control our thoughts. As I've accidentally found out the hard way of myself a few times, talking about various things, not slipping, not paying attention to my thoughts and energies. And a couple days go by and I see something had taken place. It's like, oh crap. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, right? Yeah, well, it does happen. Even to those of us that know better. Even those of us, even knowing better, we are, I'm utterly most cautious. Even doing this podcast here to make sure my energies are in check, my frequencies and vibrations, the tone of my voice, make sure there's no energy being implied into it. That way I know I'm not influencing anyone. Some people might think, there'll be a few people out there. It's like, oh wait, I can do that. Don't try. It's not a good idea. Even the ones that know how don't do it. That should tell you something. Because it's being amplified. Hello, Free Spirit Press News. And plus, there are things about that are out there just for those ones that try it. That will firmly reprimand you for doing it. So don't recommend doing it. And as you guys have known, I'm not going to teach you how to do it. But as you're learning and growing, you will learn how. That's all right, Free Spirit Press. It was a late idea of mine anyway. I've been trying to at least get one podcast a week out from KOTR now. These are all the things you're going to learn as you're building their foundation. And a lot of these things, it takes time to understand and learn. But if you start implementing them at the very beginning stage of your life, as you start walking down these spiritual paths, it will make things a whole lot easier, a lot smoother. I didn't take the smooth road. I took the very long, winding, hilly, up and down approach. Yeah, I took the School of Hard Knocks approach. Don't be that guy. That's basically don't be me. You'll thank yourself later for it. It's just like when you're learning a new school or a new path, take everything you've been taught, everything you know, and put it aside. Put it on a shelf, as I was told, and let it sit there. That way it's not influencing the things you're learning at this time. Once you've reached that point, then you grab it off the shelf, put it back. Then you start taking the parts that speak to you. Listen to, that's why meditation is so important, and knowing thyself and already having a good foundation, because now you know what is that meant for you to take from. Something that contradicts something that you may have been taught elsewhere. Just ask yourself, why? Why do I feel this way? Why am I conflicted on this? Search. Go and learn to listen to your feelings. You'll know what to do. In most cases, when something like that happens, it's because there's something there for you that you need to learn, something there that you need to make a change. And you will know when you make the right change. You will feel it instantly. That's why, I say meditation is so important. It's just it's actually more important than any spiritual name you take or oath. Now, when it comes down to taking oaths, I personally would recommend never taking one. Magical oaths is a dangerous and slippery slope. And in a lot of cases, you end up disrupting that smooth flow. You start hindering something within your path, within the energies that are flowing constantly through you. And that's what you want to refrain from. So when taking a magical oath, make sure that it's not going to conflict with that natural flow of all the energies, where it's going to, oh, I'm not going to recognize that the tree flows as one. Because when you do that, you're causing a very bad situation. And that is why a lot of people's ritual work and spell work goes awry. Does not get, you don't get the full results. Because the fact is, all those energies are flowing through you. All those energies are a part of you. Yes, we talk about duality, the microcosm and the macrocosm, to teach you the aspects and properties of each. The importance to understanding that, when one gets more focused than the other, you start causing an imbalance. You start allowing chaos starts happening a bit more. It's so you are aware of those things so you can fix them. So you can keep everything smooth, flowing smoothly and naturally. All these energies and frequencies are already a part of us. So don't take an oath that's going to hinder those things and disrupt that natural flow. Just like understanding labels. Labels are much like magical names. I mean, it's just much like, oh, I'm an Adeptus Major or a Mangus, or in my case, Master of the Temple. They have their purpose and their place, but at the same time, understand that just because I'm a Master of the Temple does not mean I will not be a student. There's the importance thing to remember. We're always learning new things. I'm never truly a master because I'm always learning. When I take on a student, which I don't have none any right now and don't plan on having any, but when we take on a student, the teacher learns from the student as the student learns from the teacher. So therefore, the student is just as much of the master as the master is the student. So that's something that you want to also incorporate into your foundation. It makes understanding things a lot easier. It helps you when you're learning to be the student and not the teacher. It allows for that smooth transition. And it keeps the ego at bay, which is very important, keeping the ego in check. Ego is important from time to time. Interesting. I just now got the notification that I went live on this podcast. Imagine that. Like I said, censorship happens even in our communities. I know. I've been suspended on Facebook on this very channel because of something I posted and talked about, which I was talking about black mirrors and technology and how it related to magic and the occult. Take a 7-day timeout and couldn't post or upload anything to the Keepers of the Realms Facebook page. It's also understanding the 4 basic paradigms of magic. Each of those paradigms, and I've said this before, are stepping stones. This is something I probably should have covered in the beginning of the series here. But Each of the paradigms of magic are stepping stone. You have the spiritual module, the energy module, the psychological module, and the chaos module. I'm not going to even attempt pronouncing its proper name. You guys know what it is. But there's also a fifth, the unwritten paradigm, which is dealing with cyber magic, something that Peter Carroll focused a lot on in the IoT, and people like Terence McKenna and others. Each of those paradigms are stepping stones. They relate, they're part of us. They're much like aspects and personas, knowing when to use each one. And they all incorporate and connect. They all are interacting with each other. So when we learn from the spiritual module and we move to the energy module, it doesn't mean we no longer work in the spiritual module. Or when we move from this energy module to the psychological module, we're still working in all of them. They're just becoming a part of us. They're stepping stones. Stepping stones as we're learning to take the training wheels off. We're learning the aspects and the energies. We're making them a part of us. We're making ourselves whole and building them into our foundations. Now, when we get into the cyber aspect, which we've kind of talked about a little bit tonight, we're dealing with this digital world we're in. You know, there's a reason why they call it the Ethernet, the ethereal net, the ethereal plane, which only a few of us go there, and we don't go there to play. You know, we have our astral realm, which is more tied to the spiritual realm, but then we have the ethereal realm, which is what we're dealing with right now in this digital realm. As you're listening to me through this black mirror, it's a scrying mirror, this divination mirror. What is divination? Nothing more than reading the energy, frequencies, and vibrations, the unwritten text. We're now more reading the energy, the properties, the aspects of each of the coding that's been written. What is coding? It's nothing more than a magical alphabet. This is, just skimming the surface of cyber magic. But yet we're interacting every day in cyber magic. We're dealing with AIs, algorithms, magical formulas, magical created entities. When we create something using code, using a magical alphabet, we're actually creating a living entity. This is something you need to just grasp the concept of and put a portion of that into the foundation, because it'll help you be aware of things that we encounter on this digital virtual sea of frequency and vibration, because it's what we're riding in. That's what we're floating in the ethereal realms. You know, with that understanding, you also understand that essentially you have a black mirror, that essentially you have a doorway and a gateway open 24/7, unless you are aware of it. And if you're aware of it, you know what to do to keep it closed. so nothing can come in and out at will. But that also, with that being put into your foundation, whether you're not ready for it or not, which at this point you would not be ready for anything cyber magic, but you will be more aware because you've put that into your foundation. So when you encounter things in the Ethernet or ethereal net, you're not triggered, you're not influenced, manipulated. We have to have those protections up. And that's something I know a lot of people are not ready to hear. I've tried to breach this subject a few times on here, and it's not went over well with people. Because most people don't even know what the terminology cyber magic until you mention Peter Carroll. All right. Oddly enough, did you send it by email? Because I'm not seeing the notification that I got a Hangout message. Plus, and another thing that I want to incorporate, make sure you understand it needs to be put in the foundation. Yeah, I didn't get that yet. But the other thing I want you guys to understand and needs to be incorporated into your foundation is not getting caught up in the things that divide us. The understanding that there's truths out there in every spiritual path that is out there. Even Christianity, guys. There's actually some very powerful rituals in the Bible. They use the term religion or the labels that we divide our pagan communities in: Druidism, Gnosticism, esoteric, occult, pagan, witchcraft, all these different philosophies and schools and spiritual paths. They all are a piece of the puzzle. And I will do a video. It'll be probably be more on urban legends and folklore, just because it's a little bit more suiting for that. But we will talk about that a bit more in one of those videos. And this is what things I've learned, researched, and the various things we do to retrieve lost knowledge and lost cultures and stuff. Like I said, what is an obelisk? Is it not a cell tower? Is it not a receiver and at the same time a transmitter? But I am going to get into my theory of how we got all this division clear across the board. Why there's all these different scattered religious beliefs and paths. And I strongly feel that my theory on this is more than sound. There is a reason why they want us divided. Because if we had all the pieces to the puzzles and seen the truth, things would be a lot different. The way we think would be a lot different. They use this division to control us, to keep us in check, to keep us from learning the real truths and becoming our own masters. Because you should be your own master. Nobody should control you. Nobody should tell you what paths are for you. You know what your paths are. Some of you are walking the paths that you belong on. There is no wrong path. Each person's path is just that, their own. But there's truths in all the paths, clear down to something that's starting to become a very lost way teaching, and that is the Native American teaching. We've pretty much lost the Aztec, Incas, and Maya teachings. And as we progress in the next 10 years, a lot of the Native American teachings will be gone. And there's some important things that you should learn from those teachings. Some people say, "Oh, that's more earth-based, that's shamanistic." They all those things can be found in one of those paradigms, and all those things flow already naturally through us. So we need to stop denying those things and accepting that they're just another piece to the puzzle. That piece to further understanding who we are and what we're meant to be. And that is masters of ourselves. Not being controlled by no one, not being used as a battery by anyone, which many groups, that's what they use their followers for, as batteries. And I'm sure that's not going to make some people happy, but that's the truth. Just like the simple truth is, there's a reason why some of the greatest magical geniuses out there left the orders of the Golden Dawn, the OTO, the Lima, and went and started learning other teachings. They realized that was just one piece of the puzzle. There's more. You know, just like I said, meditation. There's many schools of meditation, whether it be Buddhist, Tao, Tai. No, I can't even list them all. Learn them all. Take the parts that speak to you and add them and add them into your foundation. You see, here's the other thing that incorporate into that foundation of yours. And it's a simple thought, simple school of philosophy. And it's probably the most important one of them all. And that is that each path, that each, let's say, zodiac, an astrology sign, because there's Western astrology and Eastern astrology, but they all flow through us. They all are a part of us. Something that I was shocked to learn myself, that even the Eastern philosophies and astrology, the aspects and principles, they were very much a part of who I am, very much a part of all those energies that flow through me. So make sure that you know that everything out there is a part of you. That nobody is meant to control you. Nobody's meant to tell you what path is for you. It is your path. You walk it. Learn to listen to yourself and follow and let yourself guide you. That inner voice will guide you in the right directions. You might want to question it, because it just sometimes it's like, what do you then question why you're hesitating. What's causing that conflict? Because that's what it is. There's a conflict there. It may be something that you're not ready, or that you consciously feel, not subconsciously, consciously feel you're not ready to experience or accept at this time. But your subconscious is telling you, that inner voice is telling you that you're ready. So find out what's holding you back from accepting it by questioning it. Questioning things is the most important thing you can learn to do. Because, like I said, we want to keep our foundation as smooth as possible so everything flows naturally and smoothly. I'm reminded of a story I heard a preacher once talk about a stone. How a stone would go down the river, and as it traveled down the river, its edges, rough edges, would be knocked off. As it reached the end of the delta, you'd have this smooth stone or smooth pebble that was kind of shiny, but yet smooth. All the edges had been smoothed off, smoothed away. That's what we want our foundation to be. Much like how the pyramids were once built, to where it was all smooth and seamless. That's how we should be building our foundations. Every time we examine it, we see a rough edge, fix the edge, smooth it out, replace it with the change that is needed to make it smooth. And understand the purpose of titles. Titles are just like your spiritual name. Their titles is an aspect and a persona. When you take on a title and use a title, a label is what it is, you're pulling yourself and putting yourself in a category, or putting yourself as king, queen, ruler, commander, whatever term you choose to use that doesn't really trigger your ego or doesn't cause a God complex. But also know when that label is just for that work that we're doing, and that when we're done with it, it needs put back. It needs to be stored, or much like your spiritual names come to a point that it's no longer needed. That you truly encompass and become I am that I am. I.e., I am that I am. Because that is one of the hardest lessons to learn, even when we're learning to walk the tree. That's why Keither is the very top, the crown. I.e., I am that I am. I am that I am. I encompass all things. I am all things. All things are a part of me. All things flow through me. Then choose your name. That that name that encompasses all that you are and all that you will be. And you may find, much as I've found, that it's my name. It's Drew. It is not Smiley. Smiley is just another label, another title, another tool at my disposal. As you change, so should your name, until you reach that point that you realize I am that I am. And you may find that the person that you're looking in the mirror is exactly the name you should be using. And I find it funny that Drew, I've never used it. I remember back, I was 4-H. I was at a 4-H camp. This chick I met, I knew her cousin because I went to school with her cousin, and she started calling me Drew, and I hate nicknames, really do. And she tried to get it stuck. She got people in the camp to start calling me Drew, but because the second year we went back, people addressed me as Drew, but never after that. Once I left the camp, it was back to my real full name and not my nickname. And then I picked up the name, earned the nickname Smiley. And as I grew, learned, a few people started calling me Drew again. And it just stuck. It stuck to the point that, I'm now more recognized as Drew than I am Smiley. And I started to realize the transition that I was going through, the aspect and the persona of coming full circle, finally becoming I am that I am, to where now it represents my foundation. It represents everything that I've learned and will learn as I go, as I continue to walk the spiritual path, which is many, because I do not adhere to the separations that, oh no, that's bad. What makes it so bad? It's only if your intentions is to do something bad with it. If you keep saying it's bad, then you're going to start saying that those energies are bad, and then you're going to hinder that natural flow. You are made up of all things. That's the true understanding of duality. That in duality, you are both. You are encompassing and made up of all those things. Yes, we try to say it's duality, but in all actuality, it's more than duality, it's infinity. Because every energy, every frequency, every vibration, everything known and unknown is a part of us. We're just waiting for the right word or phrase or key to unlock that door that's already inside our mind. Everything we need to know is already inside us. We just gotta find the right frequency to open that part of our mind. I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely trying to keep these under an hour. Unlike Sons and Daughters of Liberty, where I've been known to ramble on 2, 3, 4 hours. And like I said, I'm going to try, no promises, but try to at least do one video a week. Like I said, Sons and Daughters of Liberty is my main focus. And as I stated, I've recently been blessed with being able to co-host on Pirate Radio Podcast, which is a all new learning experience for me, because it's allowing me to interact with many different genres and philosophies and teachings from different walks of life, which is kind of the core of what KOTR has always been about. So I kind of need to get back to the very roots of KOTR and what we created here and continue to create here to help me with what I need to learn as a co-host on Pirate Radio Podcast. Because, there's some areas that I don't talk about on here. I've never been big on the UFO thing, but eh, can't have a closed mind to it either. And I've never had a closed mind to it. I've had my own experiences with that. It's just I see it in a different aspect. You know, I see it as, it is what it is. Can't explain it, but is there a possibility? Yes. There's a possibility for a lot of things. And we've seen throughout history where it's even mentioned in history, so in ancient texts and stuff. So it's something to have an open mind to and not push it away as, oh, that's not real. Because much like my new philosophy and new opinions on Bigfoot, could it be a descendant of the Nephilim? Just an evolution process of the Nephilim? Which I think it's more than just that. But that's for another podcast. So I will hopefully see you guys next week. Hopefully on a different subject, unless I think there's something else I missed on this one. But I think I've covered quite a little bit. It's more for the beginners anyway. So I know because I have a hard time doing that but it is an important subject, one that nobody really talks about. Some of us talk about our little bit of our experiences when we go through the process of destruction of our temple, but we never really talk about it because it's different for everyone, but it's usually a numbing experience, even though after the experience, it's like you see the world with new eyes. You see and hear and feel completely different, completely like you've been reborn. It is a very truly spiritual, magical experience. Because the numbing side of it only lasts for a little bit. Then you go from instant euphoria, like you're riding on cloud nine. But then like I said, after that, that's when building your foundation starts. Because you've destroyed that foundation. You've destroyed that temple. You've destroyed all the false ideas, the lies, the deceptions that's you've picked up over the years and been taught since you were a child. Since you forgot how to look upon this world through a child's eyes. You forgot the importance of that. Which is much like why I said it's like being reborn once more. Because now you're looking at the world through a child's eyes and enlightened at the same time. And it's important not to put the garbage back into your foundation. Because if you do, once more, you're walking this world blind and not seeing it through a child's eyes. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will catch you on the next one. You guys all have a safe week.